Failing, learning, and most importantly, growing. That's the real story of running a business. 2024 was huge for me. Not only did I consult, but I showed others how to do it too, helping over 80 people become successful consultants. There was big wins and tough moments, every one of them shaping my strategy for 2025, which I want to share with you. And that's why I organized this webinar, to share it all. What every remote sales pro needs to know if it's time to take their career to the next level, the best offers and niches that delivered proven results for my students, real-time business case studies with behind-the-scenes insights of our consulting deals, and a full breakdown of my company's profit and loss and what those numbers really mean for running a business. And if you missed the live session, don't worry, because you can watch the entire webinar right now. Stay tuned, because here's your chance to see exactly what it takes to build a successful sales consulting business. Welcome to the 2024 Sales Consulting Recap. So far we've got 16 people in the meet with us today. Some are some familiar faces, some are some new faces. Whether it's your first time with sales consulting or you're currently doing sales consulting, we've got something for you in today's presentation. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So Sales Consulting 2024 recap. The first thing I must say is, dang, what an incredible year it has been. And in today, while I've got you guys with your time and attention, we're going to cover my journey through 2024, what that looked like, fully behind the scenes of doing consulting, teaching, and creating consultants. We're going to talk about when you as a remote sales professional should transition into sales consulting. We're also going to cover proven niches that are looking for consultants today, alongside the proven consulting offers that you should sell them. Beyond that, we're going to back all of that with actual real client case studies, real clients that we've worked with and even I've worked with that fit into the models and things that we explain. We've got a very big reveal for 2025, something exciting that we're doing for the first time. And last but not least, for those of you guys who've been following me on Instagram, my 2024 profit and loss reveal, where I'm going to break down the numbers of everything that I made and my profits, 47% margins this year, multi-six figures in profits, just as a quick teaser. But first, I want to get a quick poll the audience. Drop a 1 if you are brand new to sales consulting as an idea, as a concept in the chat, and drop a 2 if you're experienced, meaning you've maybe done some consulting or are currently doing some consulting. I'm curious to get a read of the room, see where you guys are at. Okay, Brandon Yamas 1, Braden Hirsch 1, Ethan Brown 2, Anna 1, Victor 2, Keith 1, Anna 2, Mr. Philip Bozick 2, Corbin 1. Okay, cool. So we've got it seems like a pretty even split between people that are experienced and inexperienced. January 18th of this year, I put a post on my story on Instagram where I said, I also want to teach what comes after closing, how to negotiate and sell and close clients for yourself at 60 to 200K contracts. And when I filmed this, on the screen there's a Google Doc. This was actually a 200K contract for a client that I closed myself on the 7th of February. On the right side, you've got the signatures there. Is a company that I worked with, Fox Forestry. And going into the top of 2024 and most of 2024, I was able to build up a pretty good client roster, a clientele for myself. There's a real estate marketing company that I worked with, Bolt Deals. Another one that's a real estate marketing company, Open Letter Marketing. There's 2 others there that I've sniffed the names of or redacted because those are a little bit more private, confidential, but a coaching company and a women's fitness company. And last but not least, Fox Forestry. But what made the top of this year so special wasn't necessarily the clients, but it was the fact that all of these clients did not require me to take a single sales call. For the first time kind of in my whole sales career consulting journey to date, I was able to crack the code, not taking sales calls. I had a fairly manageable schedule. I had Tuesdays and Thursdays to myself during the working week just to think and plan and strategize for clients. And I had 3 days a week that I was working and a bunch of content days where I was able to kind of plan, strategize, think for myself. I had finally done it right. But it wasn't always this way. I want to take you guys back to 2023, and hence why today's presentation is so important, because it didn't used to always be like this. My life up until and even till the top of 2023 looks as such. I was a remote sales professional, the high ticket remote closer. I'd done the cold calling, I'd done the setting, the closing, I'd been a top producer, but more importantly, I'd been on so many offers that were boom and bust that I'd never really found what I felt like was a true consistency to my income that maybe like a more traditional job or college would have promised. And beyond all that, I really trusted
Nobody. When you're working in the commission only role and you don't have a floor to the things that you're doing, well, it's feast or famine. Every month you're starting from square one, hitting that quota every month, every quarter. It's the same song and dance in and day out. And I really didn't know what came next in my career at the top of 2023. And so that's where I somehow managed to land a sales management role, sales management position, thinking that, okay, I think that's the thing above me is actually being a sales manager. And so I did. But it came with a pretty big catch. This sales agency that I managed to become a manager for was an overseas sales agency. And as great as the pay and what the offer was, I was working from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single day. This agency was in Australia. I was in Austin, Texas at the time. And so you can imagine what that's like. But the benefit to that is I did have some time. And so I actually took on a closing position during the day from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. doing the inbound stuff that I was used to. And I was doing around 10,000 a month in income, but it wasn't super consistent. Some months were over, some months were under, but I was really just doing all that I could with the skills that I had. And this was fun until it wasn't, because I had really started. I mean, if you really think about that, a schedule where you're working from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., day in, day out. And mind you, an Australian sales agency, their Friday is our Thursday and our Sunday is their Monday. So I really didn't have weekends to myself because, I was working on their schedule and their time, and things just started to drain. And I was really giving away all the time that I had. And here's actually a screenshot from me at what I believe was the rock bottom of it all. I was taking a team meeting for the offer that I was closing for during the day. And I took this screenshot because I very distinctly remember thinking that I was like in a good mood during that meeting and looked very friendly and approachable. And this was my face running off of probably what was 3 hours of sleep, a bunch of stimulants, and caffeine. But the worst part was is that I gave away all of my time. It's pretty much sacrificing the nicotine stare, as Ethan says. That's hilarious. But yeah, I'd just given away all of my time. I was doing what I could with what I knew and the skills that I had, and it really wasn't sustainable. But that's when an opportunity presented itself. During this process of being a sales manager, I had interviewed somebody who was working for a company named Deal.ai, or began to work with a company named Deal.ai. Somehow, through word of mouth, they had caught wind of my skills and I was approached by them directly. And what was interesting is that they were selling something that I knew how to sell. And I was able to talk and meet with the people on the team there briefly. Now, I had no intent, mind you, I had just kind of found some stability in my sales career, but the management and the closing, as draining as it was, the income was nice and predictable. And at the end of the day, I have bills to pay. So I really wasn't super stoked to, or really in a state to really want to join and leave anything else, but they really wanted me to work with them. So I heard them out. I just continued to offer value, and they slowly began to grow more and more curious of me to the point where they said, "Hey, what are you doing this Friday?" And I was like, I don't know, probably work, nothing in particular. You're coming to Vegas to meet me and the team. And I do that voice because the founder of that business, for those of you guys who know my story a little bit better, is a really large, really affluent person named Alex Mayer. He sounds a bit like that. And so he took the liberty to fly me out to Vegas. And this is something that I had never seen or experienced before. And so they flew me out in a semi-private jet charter. They paid for me to stay in a hotel, and they wined and dined me and just continued to pick my brain about information. And that's when it came, completely out of the blue, an offer that I just couldn't refuse. They said, "We want you to work with us so much that we're going to give you $10,000 a month and 10% commissions on all cash, plus $5,000 to say yes today and walk away from everything else that you are doing." And I couldn't say no. This floor was around as much, if not more, than what I was making doing all the commission only stuff. And it was just truly an incredible moment. And so I took the deal and I was super optimistic. But the business was complete chaos on the other side of it. That's why they were picking me for so much information, and why they were able to put up so much cash is because it was a mess. And so, as good as the cash and everything was, I would now throw myself in a situation where I'm now leaving two businesses, the sales agency that I was working for, the closing offer that I was working for. And as much as I'd signed to these guys and they really did love me, I still knew I had to prove myself. It was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to them understanding and building trust and getting to know who I was. But on top of that, I wasn't even entirely sure where to begin with a lot of the stuff that I was doing. And there just was just no strategy with this from myself and theirs. And so we had a bunch of intelligent people kind of grouped together, and it was just this kind of pain-driven execution. But man, did they have money, and they were just throwing money at it like crazy. And so it was a heck of a time. But the biggest mistake that I made in all of this was not only just well, the biggest mistake that I made in all of this was actually what came back to me structuring the deal properly. And so, as great as the cash was, I hadn't structured the deal properly. The biggest problem that I had before that I was trying to get away from, as I mentioned, was that I didn't have any time. And that 10% commission that they promised, well, that implied that I had to take some sales calls. And lo and behold, boy, did I have to take some sales calls. They filled up my calendar again. At least I wasn't doing it until 2 a.m. But this client, as incredible as it was and the money was just absolute madness. And this was the beginning of a new chapter, which I would deem the kind of the seed was planted for what sales consulting could be. After a little bit of time there and working and beginning to understand things more fully, slowly things started to calm down. And I thought that maybe this exchanging value and providing and consulting was something that would be a bit more viable, or maybe I could do it again. And so I had a little bit of time back once I managed to get myself off the calendar. And so I got some more clients. And so I went out to the market and I signed with an industry leading company, consulting.com. They're one of the pioneers of some of the remote consulting, coaching, education companies that you guys maybe learn or see from today. I'm just really curious for those of you guys who've been in this space. Drop a 2 in the chat if you're familiar with consulting.com. Drop a 1 if you've never heard of them before. No harm if not. Ethan's familiar. Rachel's familiar. Victor, Charlie Lyons, Atif. Yeah. So for those of you guys that knew, Barbara. Okay, no worries. Yes, Brian Howard, Sam Ovens. This was Sam Ovens' business. Emery 1, 2. Yeah. So I managed to become part of the consulting.com team, which was a real pleasure. And from there, I quickly went and signed another large client, a massive influencer, a guy named Hamza Ahmed. At the time of working with him, he had 2.3 million subscribers on YouTube. And so I got to work behind the scenes with some of his stuff there. And then I went on to sign the sister company for consulting.com, the people that bought them out, Flow Research Collective, and 2 other clients that I won't name just because they're a bit more confidential. And this was really, I wasn't thinking much of it in the moment, but this really started to stack up. And so from the time of me signing with Deal, my income just continued to grow. And by the end of 2025, in the final 5 months of 2025, I was able to take home $195,000 doing this whole consulting thing. You can see in August was 20,000, in September was 35,000, October was 34, November was 53, and December was 51. I had never seen this kind of money before in my career. And I hadn't seen it as a closer. I'd had some high months as a closer, but quite nothing like this. Now, my deals weren't perfect, mind you, but this is where I kind of realized that I think I really have something going on here. But by the time I really started to understand what I was doing and why I was getting paid for it, I realized very clearly that I had not figured out this consulting model fully. And so looking back at it, I was best at high ticket sales and being a remote salesperson at the time. I have a lot more skills and stuff now. But some of these clients that I was working with, I didn't, they didn't even need really what I could offer when it came to a high ticket thing. So it wasn't even really a good decision to partner with them. And by the time that I'd figured all this out and this cash was starting to roll in, and I was trying to work and juggle all these deals, I'd sacrificed all my time once more, but I was making 50,000 a month. So I really didn't mind that. By the time I had figured this all out, it all came crashing down. That December, I took home 51,400, and that was the last time that I'd seen that because all of my clients churned. Even Deal, the one that flew me out to Vegas. Only one client had stayed, rolled over into the new year, the little 4.41 down at the bottom. But I was at this moment, very similar to the moment that we're having today together about, what's really possible, is that I'd realized that when you have more skill, you can make more money, because I'd learned so much from doing this that I realized that I think I can probably do it again. And so I'd learned a lot. I promised myself that I'm going to do it right into 2024. And so I did. I went out there, found myself a new little portfolio of clients. And the best part was I managed to get all of these with no sales calls, really positioning myself as the expert. And I found a schedule that was actually manageable, enjoyable, and allowed me to kind of live a life with stability and, more importantly, a good income. And so after that, people had kind of caught wind of what I'd done in 2023, and they started to catch wind of a lot of that. And some people started, close friends started to ask me, how did you do it? Hey, you're still closing? No, I'm doing this whole consulting thing. And so I took a couple people close to me who were interested and I felt like had potential. And I released kind of what is this whole sales consulting thing to them in kind of a private launch. And I took on what would be my first 2 students. A student named Chase, a student named Jack. Now, they wear these jumpers because they were successes and they were kind of the poster boys for this whole entire thing. Now, Chase and Jack were two very different people. Chase was 100% a beginner. I had found Chase when I was a sales manager. I grew him from a setter all the way into a closer. And so he'd only had maybe 1 year total of sales experience. And on the other end of the spectrum, we had Jack. He was an aspiring business consultant or business owner. He was really looking for something next to do in his career. He'd been a closer, he'd been a manager, and he had probably 2 to 2.5 years of combined sales experience all throughout his career. And without a doubt, I was able to help both of these people see success. Someone who's a complete beginner and someone with a little bit of experience. Chase did, 15,000 a month AUD, which probably comes out to more like 8,000 a month, 7,000 a month USD, which was better than what he was kind of matching at closing. And then Jack was able to go on. He's one of our hyper successes. He was doing 30K plus across his two clients. And so after seeing that and believing and proving that it was possible, I decided to launch it to the public. I was like, well, maybe there's other people out here that have an interest and a desire. And so I created like some very basic marketing stuff with what I knew from the experience that I had and launched it. And man, did it take off. It went viral. We had buzz all over the place. We had people reposting my ad. We had people shouting me out. We had people messaging people that I knew who knew people that were asking about it. You see Philip's chat there. Funny enough, Philip is actually a member of Sales Consulting. We see Russ there as well. Russ is also now a member of Sales Consulting, and plenty of other people that were considering this mentorship. And we really coined the term in 2024, fractional sales consulting. We were probably the first, we are the first people that brought that to light, at least into this context. And not only that, but when we launched this and breezed it to other people and really, started to show people what it was that we were doing, our results were incredible. We had members like Darren who came in, who was a top producing closer for fitness influencer Tanner Chidester. He was able to take himself to 13,000 a month in just 3 months. We had Andrea, who was able to get himself to 12,500 a month in a couple months. We had Tanner, who was beginner at all of this stuff, was able to get himself his first client. Once more, Jack with a transaction for 7K. That 7K client grew into being a 10K one with him. We had Daryl go out and get a 5K base, 10% rev share. Never had been a consultant before, only had ever been a closer. Bob in his 56th birthday, he signed a contract with Desmond, June, Chase, Larry, Fatih, Lucas, Oliver, Mikhail, Dakota, Sean, Shanka, and so many more inside of our program that is fractional sales consulting. We have 80 members in this now, and I'm so proud of what this was, not only for the work that we put in, but for what our members and our students were able to get out of it. Which is what brings us here today, because from 2023 to 2024, had I known all that I'd known now, I would not have had my clients churn. And from 2024 to 2025, had I known what I know now, I probably would be a lot more successful, and you guys would also be getting more explosive results. And so that's why we're here, is I want to share all the little details that will really make or break your success as a consultant coming into this new year. So let's go ahead and jump into it, what we will cover. So we've just gone through what my journey into 2024 looks like. Now I want to talk about, when should you as a remote sales professional transition into consulting? So when you should transition to consulting, I boiled it down to this criteria here. The first one is that you should have 2 to 3 years of closing experience under your belt. My career to date, I've probably taken between 1,000 to 2,000 sales calls, and I've done over 10,000 cold calls, setting calls. And this is not prospecting, just time on the phone speaking to complete strangers. So it's kind of the first criteria. And if you have a pen and paper, I recommend that you guys note these down if you're curious as to when. The next qualifier is that you should have some prospecting experience. Now, you can succeed without prospecting experience. However, it is a massive, massive force multiplier. This might mean someone who, you got to be familiar with cold DMing, just messaging people, cold calling, which we don't do anything that in the program, but just, understanding how to take somebody from cold to warm, cold email, but just that concept of hunting. This has been a really big separating factor between our most successful students from some of our ones that took a little bit longer to get results, was people who had that, yes, Rusho, perfectly put, outbound sales, people that have that background to them. The next qualifier is that you should have a case study or have worked with many companies. You can get away with either or. So what I mean by a case study is that you have worked for one company and seen a large amount of growth. The minimum for this that we've kind of looked at is you've done over $1 million in sales, like cash in revenue generated for the company, or you've been a part of a business's sales team as they went through a 2x or a 4x in their company-wide growth. That's important because, when it comes to the outbound messaging and the prospecting, we talk about this more in the program, you need that kind of credibility, that edge. If you have not been a part of a company that has seen that kind of growth, or have not done that kind of sales volume, which is actually the category I fall into. I'd worked with a lot of different companies that didn't have a ton of long-term potential, so I had to find another way to kind of make myself compelling. This is why I say working with many companies, because you'll have a mastery of a model or a way of operating. I was rarely the top producer in a lot of the teams that I was on, but then again, the teams I was on were pretty small. So I could say I was the top producer if I was like a one-of-one salesperson. But I coached and worked alongside so many and managed plenty too. When I was part of the sales agency, I was really above and working really closely with some really killer salespeople. So those are kind of the qualifiers as to when you should transition into consulting. Proven sales consulting offers, proven offers that are working right now. So before we jump into explaining what the offers are, it really depends on the type of client that you're working on. And so with this, I would say that there's three types of businesses and there's two types of founders. The business and the founder makes like the client archetype. And so if you understand these, knowing what to sell, and I'll actually give you the exacts what you should sell right after this. So you know how to get an ROI. So there's three types of businesses. First one that I've seen is first dollars. These are 0 to 1 type scenarios. These are going to be people that have a proof of concept, maybe a product, but don't have any customers, looking to make their first revenue or maybe done $10,000. Second type is going to be 20 to 30K a month and under businesses. So these are companies actually 20 to 30K. I wouldn't really say far under, businesses that are probably hovering around 20, 30,000 a month. And the third type is going to be businesses that are doing 100K plus. Now, our sales consulting model, and I'll explain it as we kind of go through it, doesn't necessarily apply to enterprise yet as we kind of figure out how to do those larger, massive type situations. Obviously we'll ship that and you guys will be the first to know. And beyond that, there's two types of founders. First-time founders and experienced founders. Now, I like to look at this as like a math equation. Is it a first-time founder with no cash? Is it an experienced founder with a 0 to 1? Is it an experienced founder that's 20 to 30? Is it a first-time person at 20 to 30? There's any combination of those. And so I'm going to walk you through them now because there's three types of core consulting offers that we see. One-time deliverables, setup plus a service, or an outright service. And you're going to play around with these and I'll kind of explain the math and logic behind it. And if I get stuck at all, or if you want me guys to go backwards and explain a topic to you, feel free to just drop something in the chat. I can double back and make sure, I'm running through this pretty quick. So here's what you sell and to who. So a first dollar scenario with a first time founder is going to be a one-time deliverable. A one-time deliverable is going to look like a setter placement or a closer placement or scripting a new sales training. We've had plenty of our members do these. This is where you offer to place them a setter, ramp them over a 2-week window, and let the founder pick their favorite. This is sometimes a very good segue. Remember that type 1 businesses, that are the 0 to 1 can get to the type 2 and can get to the type 3. And the reason why I give you all these offers is because you might reapproach founders, experienced or inexperienced, with these offers, or kind of continue networking with them and once more grow with them. You can get a lot of money out of one person if you have a good relationship. So the setter placement is something we actually help you with inside of our program. We have access to the largest setting pools on earth. So if you need to, get someone in there and you want to sell somebody this, then we can help you out with that. Second type is going to be a closer placement. For any of you guys that are currently doing or selling or train sales professionals or have your own kind of sales mentorship, you can place a closer with them. This works great. We just recommend you do the placement. You could maybe ask for a contract for a percentage of commissions. That adds a little bit more complexity. Sometimes just giving them the good hire and backing off is a good way to go. The next is going to be selling them scripting and sales training. So this might be a new closing script, a new setting script, and offer them a month or so of sales coaching. This can also go on for, offer them a month or so of sales coaching. And the recommended price point for any one of these is going to be anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000 you can get away selling these. We've had plenty of founders or plenty of our current clients do that. The next type is going to be the 20 to 30K a month plus first time founders. There's a big difference between the first time and the experienced. These are the ones we recommend you sell a setup into an ongoing service with. Now, these setup contracts are usually going to deal with the topic or the concept of these setup type situations are usually going to revolve around CRM build, offering them a CRM build, a workflow, and you can bundle that in with any of the one-time deliverables that we talked about in the last, in the slide right above. The next type of offer that you're going to offer them, the next type of offer that you can provide is going to be a team lead or a growth operator / growth partner / growth consultant. I don't like saying growth operator, partner, and consultants. Those are all my competitors' businesses, but the label doesn't matter. It's what you provide that does. And this is where you might offer them this is where you might fill a role where you're going to start with closing at an increased commission, really kind of taking the front line and helping them grow their business. You're also going to offer them CRM most of the time if you're going to fill in and help develop their business into a place where it looks a lot better and runs a lot better. This might also include closer placement, setter placement, and a little bit of sales management. Companies that are at 20 to 30K a month either have salespeople or a sales team, or they don't, just depending on if it's an experienced or inexperienced founder. So this is where sometimes you have to be a little bit creative, and that's also why we do have our our sales consulting programs to help you guys navigate these so you can get the most, the most cash possible and offer as much value. The recommended price points for these are going to be $5,000 minimum and a rev share and or cash bonuses. I don't love cash bonuses, is not preferred, but depending on the founder and how much trust, you can structure the deal a couple different ways. 20 to 30K with experienced founders looks a lot like what the next category is, which is what to do with the 100K a month plus businesses. And I'll talk about those. Okay, so the 100K a month category. This is the 100K a month plus experienced. I say 100K a month plus experienced because you don't have what I would deem a first-time founder or mindset for 100K a month plus businesses. Usually these are going to be people that have experience and stuff under their belt to get to that kind of revenue numbers. You could have that once-off person who's hit it, but usually these are going to look like a setup into an ongoing service and or an ongoing service. And so I put a screenshot of the past two slides here because these deals require a little bit more structuring and a little bit more process. We have our own strategy inside of sales consulting for how it is we like to diagnose and create a custom proposal. And this is where you can come to just an outright contract with a 20 to 200K value plus a revenue share. I've closed 200K deals, 135K deals, 20K setups, 10K setups, all the deals under the sun. All of these structures I have used, done, and sold myself, and is also actively what we teach. But cool. But yeah, so these ones are a little bit more nuanced. And this is also what it would look like on the enterprise level. So if you have someone that's like, millions a month plus, one of the companies I had worked with, Open Letter Marketing, was they were doing 800,000 to $1 million a month. So they were a much larger business. Companies that are between 400, 500, 600, 700K, this also applies to them too. So really 100K and up, this is how you should look about it. Excellent. I already asked you guys if you have questions on the last one, so we'll skip the little Q&A section here and let's roll into the next piece. So we just talked about proven consulting offers. Let's look at proven niches that are looking for consultants. So what you have to understand is the problem that a consultant solves for a business. What is the value that you're providing? And the problem that a consultant solves is a lack of experience. You're kind of like, you're not quite an employee. You're not quite just a contractor. You're someone who knows something very depth, very specific that you are selling to them. Any one of those one-time services or something that you know better than them, and that's what you're feeling is a lack of experience. And it's not niches or specific industries that have demand, believe it or not. I get asked this all the time. What industry should I get into? What niche should I pick? It's not about the niche. It's really about the specific type of founder and the skills, the specific skills that they lack. And this applies to any niche. Now, you probably couldn't do, retail stores with remote sales. Maybe if you did back end like franchising or distribution or things of that nature. But this is where you can really go anywhere you would like with this, so long as you're able to identify what skills the founders lack because it shows up in their business. And so there are 3 types of skills that founders lack. And if you understand these, it makes it that much easier to sell them. And I'll explain how you sell them on these deals right after. So the first skill that founders lack is sales skill, meaning that they're just not good on the phone. They don't know how to close the deal. They don't understand the nuances of human conversation. They don't know the ins and outs. They don't know how to close. The second skill is marketing, meaning they're not good at getting attention or buzz for their business. They don't know how to get eyeballs on them. They don't know how to generate leads. And the third is product skill, meaning they are great at the first 2, but are just lacking at keeping customers around and providing really killer and incredible results for people. Most of you, I'd probably argue all of you here today are really good at this one, sales skills, which is kind of how I found my segue into it. And so sales is really the needle mover. It leads all of this because if you don't know how to sell, you can't close these contracts, you can't help your clients, and the client's business can't grow. The best marketing in the world is nothing without sales. Now, marketing can sell, but usually at lower price points than what you could with a salesperson in front of the camera, just like this, saying, hey, here's what we got, you're in, you're out, handle some concerns, close them. So how do you actually sell people that lack in these deficits? Well, let's walk through them one by one. Sales-heavy founders. These are the hardest people to close on consulting. And for any of you guys who are in my program currently, sales consulting, in there you've got a recording that is like an hour and a half long with Bolt Deals, which is a real estate Facebook ads marketing agency. One of my most successful clients, or a really successful client that I worked with, probably not the most, I would say. Man, was he a hard person to close because he was a very sales heavy person. And so they believe that the solution to everything is selling more, regardless of how many leads or marketing that they have. They would rather ask a lead that said no to buy 5, 6 more times than find a new lead to ask for money. That's how they think about solving problems. A lot of times these people would actually be a lot better off just being a consultant for someone's business than actually running the company that they're a part of. The problems that these types of businesses struggle with is usually lead flow. And these clients are a little bit tricky to work with because once more, they believe that the only way to solve their problems is to just close people harder and sell more effectively, not market better, not make the product better, just how do I just get more money out of the people that I'm speaking with or the little people that they're speaking with. These are the hardest people to close, but there's opportunity in them. And you sell them on, hey, let me help you get more leads and let me help you sell better, but predominantly let me help you get more leads for your sales team. Marketing heavy founders. So what these look like is these are people that have a lot of leads. And with that, they usually have a lot of product lines because they're not that great at sales. They don't know how to close people on the phone at high price points. So they just have more things to sell them at cheaper price points and hope that they buy all of them. So these are people that, they get a lot of attention. I would argue that creators fall into the marketing heavy category because, they're really good at getting attention and eyeballs, not necessarily the best at monetizing. Hamza, that I worked with, was a marketing heavy person. He had a couple different product lines at low price points, really couldn't crack the whole high ticket thing. Bolt deals that I was working with, they were sales heavy. And so you'll see the differences in just how they behave and operate. Marketing heavy founders struggle with process. They get attention and leads from all places. They have people buying different stuff at different price points, but there's not a flow or structure to all of it. And so they struggle with process. And I can help you with a sales process, is what you want to sell these people. The third type is product heavy founders. These are the best clients. These are the ones you want to shoot for 9 out of 10 times. These are people that are potentially coders, engineers, people that are deep in their niche, really understand the product that they have, really get incredible results, are really masters of the craft and put their pride on doing the thing that they promise beyond all else. And usually these people are not very sales heavy or marketing heavy, meaning that they're not great on the phones and they're not great at generating attention. For example, one of our members, Larry, is working with a company called the CRO Collective. They help enterprise organizations get ready to hire a CRO or prepare themselves for a CRO. And they help people that have been promoted into the CRO position effectively, navigate the complexities of large organizations. The guy that runs that is an expert leader, is an expert at business process, has an MBA, does not know how to market for the life of him and like run ads or do anything to get attention to him. And he knows how to sell because it's a very relationship-based sale, but he couldn't build like a 1 call, 2 call process. Like he's still of the thinking like, let me have 4 or 5 meetings with this person before I close them. When, hey, with what you offer presented the right way, you could collect that money and close same day. So the problem that these people have is sales and marketing. These are the ideal people you want to shoot for. Usually they are going to fall into maybe the 0 to 1 or 20 to 30. You'll have the oddball that's doing 20 to 30 or maybe even 100K plus. If you find someone that's in this category, the 100K plus, they're nuclear opportunities because what they're doing is so good that with the little skills that they have, it's making money. If you bring in some skills, a little bit of orchestration, you can really blow them up. And this whole product heavy founders is what we are bullish in. And, going into 2025, this is where my sole focus is going to be, is people who are masters at a very specific or niche craft. And we're ourselves as a company, sales consulting, or my consulting arm of it, I'd say, we're going to niche around education, around tech skills. So companies, these aren't our companies and not our clients, but for example, company front end simplified, learn how to code and get a tech job in 12 weeks, launch a career in tech. We are going to attack this space head on and aggressively because this is where we see things are trending. Darren, one of our guys who is somewhat, I'm not going to call him, kind of an exception. He was able to do $13,000 sales consulting while still working his full-time sales job, working with a product heavy person. His niche was, he had a guy in fitness that was doing big numbers, but he also had a guy that did real estate wholesaling and had a whole wholesaling team. Now, real estate wholesaling, as much as it is a very sales heavy place, the founder of that was a master at real estate deal making. And Darren was a master at phone closing, sales management, and sales. And so the two of them just was explosive, and he was getting overrides, he was getting bonuses, he was getting his fixed fees. He had no problems getting results for this guy because he knew how to whip together real estate deals and complex transactions like the back of his hand. He's more of a finance guy. And so it's opportunities like these that provide outsized returns for the amount of effort that goes into them. Excellent. Any questions? Any questions on that before we roll into the next category? If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. If you don't, you know the drill. Drop a 2 and we'll keep moving. Whoop, Shanka, love it. How come EdTech? Okay, great question. So we picked we picked technology around like coding and things of that nature because kind of the time in the info space, we believe, at least myself, I think that we've gone into like post COVID was such a heavy work from home, work online, become an entrepreneur, screw the system. And there was this whole kind of rise of Tate and the themes of that, if you need to be independent and a business owner, that I think that we've gone so hard one way with entrepreneurship. And I'm not saying that's going to go away. That's still going to be a massive industry, make a ton of money. But the everyday consumer, I think, is becoming a little bit more skeptical of this stuff. There's been so many people that have come in and promised business opportunities. There's a lot of sales and marketing heavy people that are promising programs and products that I think a lot of the market is jaded. And plenty of people just really want something that provides a consistent and stable income, something that takes more of the form of a job where they can just kind of, I can work remotely or work for a cool company from home, just using my brain, not doing manual labor. And so whether it's in career, whether it's in technology specifically, or maybe in other professions, that's where I'm betting money and things are going to be going. And so that's why I'm planting my flag in that. So that's a great question, Ethan. Now, just because I say that, for all you guys watching this, don't go then hop into this niche and copy what I'm doing. This was a very calculated move. I do have a lot more resources and things now. I'll talk about that later on. That makes it easier for me to approach these. Start with what you know. As part of the sales consulting program, we really help you understand where exactly you should be and how you can provide the best results for your clients possible, regardless of your experience. So don't be biased by what I'm saying. My pick is my bet. If you guys can participate in it, that's great, but you can make tons of money in other industries like Darren is with real estate wholesaling. Like that's one that I'd enter. Maybe showing people how to become a wholesaler or helping a wholesaler develop, an educational arm or establish business, things of that nature. Let's talk deals. Let's talk about some client case studies, some real client results is what we're going to talk about next. So we have 22 of them from this year in the 6 or 7 months that 7 months, 7.5 months, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, 5, 6, 7, 8. In the 8 months that we've been running this, 80 customers, 22 of them got outstanding results. A bunch of others are in the process. We got a woman, Onisha, right now who's partnering or is in the talks with a company that's preparing for an aggressive sprint to then go and sell to Google. I want you guys to comment a number down below, and I'm going to talk about these client examples and their stories in the orders that you pick. So between 1 to 22, put them in the chat in the order that I see them flow in. In the order that I see them flow in, I will kind of pick them and talk about the stories. 22, 19, 22, 8. Also, if someone says your number, spin with another number as well. You can drop one in there. Okay, 7, 21, 9, 6, 23. Excellent. Oh, Brian, 23 picking Jordan numbers only up to 22. Barbara, 20. Okay. Sweet. And if you guys keep commenting, if you want to keep commenting them, if you see them on the screen, I'm going to show them on the next page. If you have one in particular, drop it in the chat. So take it from the top, 22. So Mikhail, Victor pick 22. So Mikhail was a member who worked with us who, let me actually find the screenshot here. He did a setup and he's in negotiations now for moving some of his setups into services. So he charged $3,000 for a go high level follow-up, for a go high level build for one of his clients. This is a guy that is a marketing heavy person. So they've got a ton of leads coming in, but they lack a lot of structure. So this whole GHL is to kind of prepare to funnel some of his traffic more specifically into a high ticket. Another one that he was working with, he had a client that he was working with before, Conversion Law and Virtual Track. I messaged me, talked to him at the end of the day. He had a couple deals that he's spinning with, but he charged $3K to get a setup for a go high level. And that's a client that he's working with now. That's a fitness influencer that is now progressing into a full blown kind of services contract. He had another guy that he was working with that he did a setup that was an agency that was just sales heavy guys, not marketing heavy guys. Once more, they actually, they turned the key on their business because they were better off kind of doing consulting. So they decided to go other ways. So when I talk about, the nuances between why people pick what they pick, that's why it is what it is. But Mikhail's got, he's got a really large influencer in front of him, a guy that runs a community called New Money. He's once more an influencer creator type, lacks a lot of process. So they're in negotiations and talks for that deal. The GHL build that he did, there's another one that he did a systems build for. He did a couple of the small setup ones. He hasn't got quite locked into like one of those nice service-based ones, but he's been doing good with those. Sweet. Corbin talked about 19. Andres. Okay. So Andres was someone who joined us who his background, he had been a high ticket closer. He's still doing some closing currently. He'd started his own kind of sales training and community and was now beginning to get some demand or finding ways that he can monetize it more and better. So now that he has this pool of people that he's been kind of selling and doing sales training for, he wants to expand that into becoming a, more full-fledged, longer contracts, because the once-off consulting deals that he's doing or sales coaching is great, but to have the recurring of being part of a sales team is really exciting for him. So he wasn't charging for placement. So we got him set up. up and kind of gave him the structure and how to begin to charge for placement for people that were asking him for it. And he's got some people he's speaking with now that there's the potential for him to, get an ongoing just kind of outsourced sales management or fractional sales management. That hasn't come to close, but we know for certain that he's closed a 1K on the placement. He gets 2% of the commissions of that closer that he placed. And there's some other deals in the works, but he's just been a busy individual, is kind of out and about. Okay, 22, Brandon Youngs. Oh, we already talked about that. Fatih coming through to number 8. June coaching and placement. Okay, so June was actually one of our like mega success stories. June was one of the earliest members to join after we did the full informal launch. I actually met him here in Medellin. For those of you guys who know more of my story, he came to the apartment and we kind of helped set up all of his initial stuff as a consultant, and we launched him. He now has he went a bunch of different directions with it, and it was all kind of guided by us. The consulting stuff we were more involved with. Some of the other things just kind of came as a byproduct of him getting more attention on himself and doing some ads. But he now has a sales community that makes him 8,000 a month in recurring. We helped him a lot with that. We're very good at the whole sales coaching business model. So he does 8,000 a month consistently with that, just taking a couple group calls a week. From that, people will buy that once-off sales training, scripting, and coaching from him. Oh, it's actually 10,000. I just got word. 10,000 a month in recurring revenue is what he does from that community now. Of that, a bunch of the people in there are a mix of business owners and closers that will buy more once-off coaching from him at a 4 to 5K price point. He also does sales placement as well, where he's putting people into businesses. He does charge for that. And then he did have a management contract or a coaching contract that he's doing outside of it. June was someone who had like 4 or 5 deals in front of him at like 8,000 to 9,000 a month that he did bring to close. I just think for more personal reasons, not because they weren't closable, but I don't know. June's an interesting character for those of you guys who know. But yeah, that's June. He's crushing it. He's doing 30,000 a month now. It was his goal. He'd never done 30,000. Yeah, he had never done 30,000 prior to working and joining with us. His success stories on my YouTube, if you want to hear more about that. We did 2 of them together, actually. One when he did his first like 10,000 or 15. The other one when he did 30. It took him 5 months. 5 months from the time of joining to get to 30. And so he's cruising now all over the world. Yeah. And another note to that, several months he's been out. Like 30,000 isn't just like a one-time thing that he's hit. Like he hovers around there, probably between 25 to 35 on average. Okay. Ateeth picked 7, Jack. Okay. Jack was another one of our explosive students, really explosive students. So Jack and I had a really good working relationship prior. He was someone I met when I was still sales manager for the sales agency, the one in Australia, the 2 o'clock, the 3 o'clock, or how did I put it? The midday to 2 a.m. I very distinctly remember the 2 a.m. kind of clocking in for a meeting in the middle of the night, flipping my huge studio lights on and kind of wiping the bags from my eyes. He was working as a closer, kind of quasi-team lead for one of the clients of that sales agency that I was working for. After I left that agency, I was really the glue holding that thing together, apparently. That client wanted to leave, and Jack was not sure how to get himself into like the most senior position there and get what he wanted out of it. And so 14. Yeah. And so we worked together pretty closely and just helping him navigate the negotiations and conversation for that, to where he walked out of that with a 7,000 a month base that he's getting from that company, plus 5% of all cash that comes in. And so that company does anywhere between 300 or like 250, 300,000 a month. So that 5% of that brings him to mid 20s, bring that other 7 in there, or brings him to 1450, bring that 7 in there, brings him to 20,000 a month off of that client alone. Then he had another client that was a 7,000 a month, a fitness company that he was working with, that he was helping them launch. And then they upsold into 10,000, additional 3,000 a month with him. So Jack does really good numbers. He's living in a cool apartment in Dubai. Haven't spoken to him in a while. A lot of our best guys, they get some numbers and they disappear. Like Darren, we don't talk to him a lot. Made some money, now he's off doing his own thing. Jack made some money, he's off doing his own thing. Same thing with June. Talk from June from time to time. So yeah, Jack was an absolute killer. Brandon talked about 21. Who was that we had there? Oh, Oliver. Okay. Oliver came to me. He used to run an agency. He was a sales heavy guy, as I talked about, and just kind of realized that, why am I running this agency? All I like doing is sales. And so he bought a remote closing program to get better at selling because he wasn't good at doing that for his agency. Shortly after doing that, he realized, like, I don't think I just want to be a closer. I'm much more of an entrepreneurial type. So I need to do something more with myself, but I don't want to run an agency. He found me, understood the consulting model, and was like, how do I get into this and do this? I get to do the sales and marketing, but not the product, which is what the sales and marketing heavy guys don't like doing. That's why I say before with the founder types, the sales heavy and the marketing heavy guys, you want a product person that doesn't care too much about selling or marketing. So Oliver now has two clients right now that he's doing roughly 4,000 a month with in fixed fees before the upside. Ironically, they're both marketing agencies. One of them does SEO services. The other one does landing page design. I'm not sure where he's at with them. It's been a while since I've spoken to him. And he actually has enough time outside of those to scratch his itch for doing more. And he's doing a little bit of closing too. So that's Oliver. He's kind of running and gunning, made his ROI back and then some. He's been at 4,000 a month for probably the last 4 or 5 months or so. So he's doing pretty good. Okay, number 9, and I might not do all of these just because of time. Number 9 is, let me pick it here. Daryl. Okay, so Daryl was someone who came to me, similar situation to Jack. He was a successful closer on the offer that he was working with, and the owner was wanting to bring in outside kind of leadership to, you know, grow the business. Daryl wasn't really comfortable with that idea. He didn't quite know how to approach taking ownership and leadership for that. And not only that, but he really also didn't want to just be a closer forever. So he found me and he had an opportunity in front of him. And he also had people that had solicited him to do like sales. Hey, can you come train for me? Can you come sell for me? Can you come coach for me? He didn't know how to approach those and monetize them. He'd never done something like this before. So I worked with him through once more navigating that conversation with his existing offer owner to walk out with a 5,000 a month fixed fee for what he's getting now for his time there. He didn't have that prior. He has increased commissions for the deals that he closed and an override for any other closers that are underneath him. So he got that with his first client that was a trading offer. Now, that was a hard client, I will say. I'll put a big disclaimer on that. Because they're in the trading niche, it's a very competitive one. That founder was a very aggressive, big money type person, moved very fast. So Daryl learned a lot in going through that, but he's doing good now. He was able to get enough time back during that process, or was able to get good enough at this model that someone else who had been kind of like, in his DMs for a while saying, hey, come work with us, come work with us, come work with us. He signed them on 2,000 a month just to do setter management, not taking any sales calls. And so he's what, 5, 6, 7, 7,000 a month recurring off the two of those alone before their upsides or any other commissions. So yeah, Daryl's crushing it. He's got his jumper. I've got a photo if you guys want to see what Daryl looks like. He's here. So yeah, Daryl's doing good. Okay, coming back to these, I'll do 2 more of them. We'll do 2 more of them. We've got 6 and we've got 20. So for 6, what do we got there? Larry. Okay, Larry. Oh, Rushel through his 14 again. Fine. Yeah, we'll finish them off. I'll run through them quick. Okay, Larry has actually probably one of the best setups as well with a client. So he signed that company CRO Collective I talked about it, $4,000 a month plus 10% of all cash, does not take a single sales call. It is a product heavy person that doesn't really get sales. He understands it, but doesn't not create the whole process piece. It does not do a lick of marketing. So all Larry does is a little bit of marketing for him, such as just promos to his email list, some basic setup stuff, things we show you inside of sales consulting. And he also does, no, that's really most of what he does for them. He helps with their live events and things like that. So that client's been with him at 5,000 a month, has been probably like 2 to 3 hours a work of week for him. And he's had them for 5 months now. So they've done over, he's had them for more than that now, like 4, 6 months. But he's done over 28K, I think last he told me off of them, 28K in LTV. And he outside of that, he's had the time to sell some other like setup deals at 4K a pop. So doing some kind of front end setups for companies that he's going to slide that into more sales management in the back end for appointment setters. And then he's got another person as well that's doing 4,000 a month with him. So he's got 8K between those 2 clients coming in consistently, and then a little 4,000 for 4K here and there that kind of comes in. Without sales calls. He's got his own brand, his own sales community too, very high leverage. So he was someone that also was a trickier one, because he was like, I've got an interview with him on my YouTube. He was like, really the money's in that final 10%. That's why I talk about this today. It's in those final nuances. So he's doing great. Okay, 20 from Barbara. So 20, Dakota. Okay, so Dakota was someone who joined us that was actually more of a chase type scenario. He didn't meet a ton of the qualifiers, and so it was work with him, but we were able to help him find a client that signed for 6K. I actually think it was more. I think it was 5K a month, but there was some upsides into that. So he was able to work with that client for a good while. I don't think they're working together now. There was just a really big skill gap, and our qualifiers for how we were getting into people's sales consulting was a lot lower when we first launched compared to what it was now. And so he's got a consulting gig that he's doing the team lead with increased comms. And now he also has a closing position outside of that. So Dakota's been with us since inception. So he's a killer. He's been doing good. Okay. Rusho 14, and then lastly Julio at 10. So 2 more, and then we'll move on. 14, Ethan. Okay, so Ethan's actually in the chat with us now. So Ethan had a client that he found just through the networking prospecting that was a They were a larger org. They were doing the 100K month plus. I believe it was a 6K client. Actually, Ethan, if you want to talk about that too, feel free to drop notes in the chat because I'm running off of my memory here and what I saw on our WhatsApp. But this was ages ago now that he'd signed this one. But he had a client that he found that was an educational company in helping men with porn addiction recovery. So I wrote NoFap space. You guys know what NoFap is. Porn addiction recovery is the more eloquent way of putting it. And so he was able to work with them for a little bit of time and also had a little bit of freedom outside of that to take on a closing gig. He's still in the consulting. He's still in the consulting or doing the consulting closing stuff now. Ethan was also someone who was more of those chase scenarios where hadn't had a ton of closing experience or sales experience and is still kind of developing that. Those qualifiers I gave you earlier, those solid 2 to 3 years of closing really do help with a lot of this stuff. And so like someone like Ethan who had a client that he worked with for a good period of time, didn't necessarily stick around forever, wasn't that long-term relationship, does come back to kind of the skills and things that you learn in that. So yeah, I can send it out. Sweet. Yeah, message him. Found the client through cold DMs on Facebook, pushed a lot of volume there, not recommended. Sweet. I get affiliate link. Okay, cool. And then lastly, Julio mentioned 10. So we've got Bob. So Bob was actually a very interesting one. He's 56. He had a $5,000 setup that he charged to a company plus getting 20% of their top line. This is a coaching company that did book launches or publishing for people. He had experience in that space prior. He now has a client that he's working with outside of that where he's just filling kind of that team lead operator role. And he's doing, last I checked with him, he's doing 8,000 a month from that, but he's got a clear path to like 20, 30K plus. He's very well leveraged there. Cool. Okay. That was a mouthful. But yeah, so that was some of our success stories. There's many others as well. Glad to have you guys pick the ones that you picked. Okay. So let's keep moving on. We got more info to cover. So let's talk about the profit and loss for 2024. Let's get people re-engaged. Drop a 2 in the chat if you guys are ready to actually see the numbers. It's the moment that you guys have been waiting for, actually seeing how much we did and made and took in this year. 2, 2, 2. Sweet. Spamming the 2s. Dose 2. Okay, so let's share it. I'm going to stop this share screen and open up the export from QuickBooks. So this is it. Online Exits is the name of my company. And so I'll walk you guys through this line by line. So the mix between us doing the consulting this year and also providing the education brought us in a total of $456,000, $456,527.54 in this year. I don't know what that minus 125 for services is, something random in there. We did have some people that came, but due to unfortunate circumstances did bounce. And we also had some clients too that we had some, we accidentally did some double billings for just because the software wasn't set up properly. So 37,000 back in refunds was left us with a total gross income of $419,000, $419,029.88. Of that, we had a handful of expenses. So I ran my Facebook ads this year. So the total advertising and marketing cost came out to $62,000. Commissions and fees paid to either affiliates or people that referred people to us was $1,000. Actually, I think there's a little bit more than that, but commissions and fees, $1,478. Contract labor, mean paying myself and the team included. So we were very, very lean, came out to $86,000. That includes me and the freaking life that I live here in South America, which is incredible. Banking fees, servicing charges, continuing education, uniforms. 986 we spent in making and sending these out to you guys, FSC members. So total expenses, 3,176. The place that we really got eaten alive this year, believe it or not, is in softwares and apps. $23,000 somehow we spent on software this year. And this is something that I actually I found pretty mind-blowing myself. And what's crazy is that I got an advice from a mentor saying it's death by 1,000 cuts when it comes to your finances. None of these software charges were for more than $1,000, believe it or not. And so we've got a couple for $300. So this is something that we should have been more diligent on. But of that, the total net operating income was $213,000 plus some more cash. We also got some more sales as well prior to the month ending, which comes out to a gross profit of $214,884.62. That is after my expenses, my travel expenses, and everything needed to live through the year. So pretty solid. And I show this as inspiration for what is possible. Because like once more, from my story of what I showed you guys, like I am not college educated. I'm not anybody particularly special. I don't have a super high IQ. I've just kind of pioneered all of this from after having learned and developed my career in sales. And it's been able to lead me to this place here where years ago I would have absolutely killed to make this kind of an income. And especially for my age, to not have those qualifiers, there's no job that I could get that could help me land into something like this. And so very blessed. And this is all possible if you follow the path that we're kind of laying out for you here along the vein of sales consulting. Cool. Sweet. And we've got a little bit more. Let's go back into the slide deck. Yeah, drop a 2 in the chat if you guys found that pretty interesting. Was it actually, I would say, Was it more or less than what you were expecting? I'm actually kind of curious to see what you guys' thoughts are on these education and coaching companies, service companies. More. Oh, cool. More. Sweet. I don't know. Maybe I just have high expectations for myself. I thought it was going to be less. Julio less. That's funny. Exactly what I expected from your investment story. Yeah, I did take all the money that I made this year and dumped it into an investment for the future. I don't need to be sitting on the cash. So cool. What I expected. Sweet. Okay, excellent. So spot on. Yeah, love it. Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the big reveal for 2025. We got something super special. So this is actually what I'm most excited for. And part of the reason why I host this and do all of this and the transparency is like we've got something incredible coming. And so I want to show you guys this, which is going to be we're doing our first live event. So the official sales consulting event 2025. So we're going to host our first in-person event here in Medellin, Colombia, where you can meet not only myself, but other members of the sales consulting community. And during this, I'm going to break down more of exactly what my paid ad strategy and what the strategy is going into 2025 is for ourselves as a company. You can meet us and real members and get firsthand insights of like what's working. Fatih's here, Shanka's here, a bunch of other members and people are here. Not only that, but you'll have your funnels, ads, and assets reviews live. So for any of you guys that are doing consulting or want to start consulting, we can break those down for you alongside getting your contracts and your deal reviews, give you a sneak peek into the full program. We've got a VIP dinner after the fact for all of our attendees. Sweet. So yes, that is coming this Saturday, January 18th. It's 2 weeks away. We'll post more information about this in the live chat. We'd love to have some of you guys come in. If you've not been to Medellin, Colombia, I definitely recommend that you consider maybe buying the tickets, flying out, having a little trip here. It's incredible weather. And we will, if you guys message me directly as you're going through this, I'll drop the link in the chat. I'll drop the link in the chat here for you guys to be able to check it out. Save it, bookmark it, put it on the calendar. But yeah, I would definitely recommend making a little trip out of it, coming down to Colombia. And, if you get to meet myself, we can make sure that you guys have a good experience, show you what's cool, show you. And if you're a remote closer or remote salesman, there's a ton of remote closers here. There's an incredible community beyond myself as well. There's other just regular, more remote closing communities, job ops, and things of that nature. So cool. So for those of you guys who've made it this far, I appreciate it, honor, respect, and love the attention that you guys have given today. Incredible. So before we wrap, if you guys found this presentation exciting, motivating, or thrilling for your 2025, drop a heck yeah or a hell yeah in the chat if you guys are ready for 2025. I do this because I pretty much did this myself privately at the end of 2023 into 2024. And it's really what inspired me to be able to understand and prepare for the year that's to come. And so I make this because I want to include you guys into what the journey is going to be for the next year. Yep. Okay, sweet. Love it. And so if you're here today, it's truly because deep down in your heart of hearts, you guys believe that you are destined for something great. I have spoken to enough salespeople doing this that there's a very small subsect of people that truly believe in that whole concept of mastery, skills, and development. A lot of people will forever be salespeople and do the same thing day in and day out. And so I really honor and respect the fact that you guys have it in you if you've made it this far and sat around. And I will say that the time is now, more so than ever, to expand, push your limits. We're in the top of a new year. And like I told you in my story, there was a point that I really didn't see a way out of sales. Like I was doing the 2 a.m., like the 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. grind. I was just doing with what I know. I didn't have anything like this when I started. Didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a process. I didn't have any sort of guidance or anything to follow. All of this I kind of just pioneered through banging my head against the wall. I did it right and then lost it all. And now my plan is to do it even better than I have before. And so coming into 2025, when it comes to the nuances, we're taking the fractional part off because that part seemed to confuse the market at large, because all of the money, as I talked about, is in the nuances. It's in the nuances of how you do these things. And so I encourage you guys that if you're interested or considering it, join us. Come join us this year into sales consulting. As much as this experience has been, you guys are our top priority for those of you guys who believe it's possible. And I want to help you guys get to wherever it is that you want to go. And so I'm going to drop a link in the chat here. If you guys have been on the fence or waiting or thinking about it, I encourage you to set up a time. Let's talk about it. Let's think about the career. Let's think about what you guys are going to do for the coming year, for next year. And let's make it absolutely incredible for you. And the thing I have to say too is that it's not only about my success, but it's really about the successes that we've been able to create and what your success could be. Because every single one of our students, every single one of them started exactly where you guys are today, with just the idea, maybe an insight. Andrea, prior to joining sales consulting, had just been dropped from his sales gig, or he'd left his sales gig because it was taxing him too much. He had no time. He currently lives in Southeast Asia. The time zone difference was killing him, and he needed something new. He cut off all of his income, took a bet on joining us here, and was able to get to 7,000 a month in his first 60 days, and now doing 12,500. He's got clients working with large influencers, smashing it. Darren, once more, full-time closer. Actually didn't have a ton of pain, just wanted to do something more with his career. Full-time closer, living in New Jersey with his girlfriend, sole provider of his household, really well connected with his family, had a little bit of extra time, was really busy, was still able to make it work. Tanner. Tanner was someone who had left his sales job because he was getting pinched or he was getting, squished. Just the work culture was just terrible. He's getting, ringed on both ends, commissions being cut. And so he took the stab to join us and was able to get 2 clients. Chad Mitchell, great question. We will cover that during your call. It's a 5-figure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5-figure investment, but we have our success stories here on the student. We have our success stories in the chat here today. Also have that group chat. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to any of the existing customers. I'm sure that they'll, be more than happy to give you their perspective. What's more, Jack, someone who's an experienced salesperson, sales manager with a desire to do something more, had never done entrepreneurship prior in his life and his career. We were able to help him kind of go out there, get something started on his own. He's got his own little word of mouth brand. Daryl, just a closer, young guy, still living in the Netherlands. I think he was on his own, had his own place, girlfriend, long distance, just, everyday person in closing, just trying to figure out what comes next. He didn't want to be on the phone made that jump and joined us. Yeah, Bob, 56, he's 56. He's got a family, he's got a life and other things that are going on. And so, he decided to make the jump and join us because he didn't just want to be on the phone forever. He had kept finding himself only taking commission only gigs and felt kind of stuck and felt kind of cornered as far as what he could do. Hadn't really developed those other skills. As I talked about, the founder skill lacking. He didn't know the market, he didn't know product. And so really was just kind of pigeonholed there. But once more, he was able to find success for himself on his birthday while being 56. Not a tech savvy guy, not the fastest learner, but a really good salesperson, really good intentions, and really took action on it. Desmond, SaaS sales background, working remotely. He'd been a ton of BDR, end-to-end full cycle stuff, and was just kind of tired of, going from SaaS company to SaaS company to promise to equity. Was able to find some more cash for himself on top of his sales gig, working, part-time with some of his clients. Or June, left his sales job entirely, went all in on building a brand, developing his own mentorship, his own community, his own program, and is now doing consulting and has got, 30,000 a month is what he's doing with just himself and the force of what he is. Chase was able to Chase was able to get a couple clients for himself, 3,000 a month consulting client, once more, maybe only a year of experience under his belt. Larry, someone who already had a bit of success, a sales community, living in New York. He's got expensive lifestyle, keeping in New York, and was able to once more join us, get his investment back on a client, and is crushing it. Or Fathi, cybersecurity, SaaS sales background, done BDR prospecting, not a ton of closing experience, has sales experience. No, not much of a tech guy, not a lot of leadership experience, was able to go out there after it and make it happen. Father, family was a construction background. Lucas, young guy living out in Switzerland, just been a remote closer for a little bit of time, able to get himself a 3,000 a month client, no sales calls included. Oliver, the agency background. Mikhail worked for one of the largest influencers on the planet, runs a program. Well, I'm not going to name names because he wants to keep it confidential. While still working his stuff, was able to go out there and land a couple clients, make some cash, and is, finding his way out of his sales gig into, the new clients that he's working with. Or Dakota, not a ton of sales background. And the stories go on and on and on. And so, and even Shanka, who's on the call today, after, little dinner together and a little bit of advice, was able to get a setup fee and a 70-30 rev share. So I say that because it is possible. And I'm very excited for 2025, and you guys should be too. I thank you for your time and attention today and coming with me through this journey. And if you're interested in considering joining the sales consulting program, I highly recommend you do so. We have your back through and through with nothing but transparency, legitimacy, every step of that process, and helping you navigate, take those first steps into entrepreneurship, because I didn't have anything like this, but if I did, I sure I would have been much further today. But the best thing that I can do is give back to what I wish I had, or give back to my younger self. And that's why I make this, and I give it back to you guys. So thank you, and welcome to 2025.